Friends, welcome back to my channel. This is Marla. I'm so glad you're joining me today. Last week over on the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel, I posted a card featuring the Meraki Artisan Flora Die Peony. In that video, I did some layering of colors. I showed how I was able to achieve a beautiful look for 3 different flowers using 3 of the same base colors. And here's a look at that card. I was also showing you the flowers. You can create one large peony or these half peonies, which I absolutely love. And I had some requests asking to share how I actually assembled the peonies. So today we're going to do a little bit of watercoloring. I'm going to do some assembly. We'll talk about tips and tricks to get these beautiful dimensional flowers. I really think that that's a high impact card. Some of my favorite cards to send are these dimensional flowers. So I've cut my peonies out of Fabriano Artistico, I believe it's cold press watercolor paper. And then I have these Karin Real Brush markers. I have 4 colors. I have a dark, 2 darks, and then I have 2 lighter shades. We're going to build from the darkest. That's going to be in the back, and then we'll get lighter as we move forward. So this is my darkest color. I believe it's like a rose pink. You'll notice that I'm going direct to paper, adding it around the edge of this largest die cut. I'm also adding the 2 darkest colors. So I started with the darkest, and then this is the second darkest, to the accent pieces that will go on to my next layer. And then I'm going to use some water and just blend this out. This is not artistic watercoloring. I like to use white cardstock, whether it is cardstock or watercolor paper, to color my flowers myself. This way I can add the tones and the shading that I'm looking for. You certainly could use colored cardstock for this process. You would get a different look. And if you go over to the Crafty Meraki website where their store is, you'll be able to see some other samples where someone used cardstock. I just think that these have more impact when you color them yourself. So I'm not focusing on the center of that largest die cut because 90% of that is actually going to be covered up. But I did add the darkest colors to the edges and then blended those out. We'll move on to the second layer. And for the second layer, I'm starting with my second darkest color. And I believe that that color is called Pale Pink. I'm going to do the same process. I'll go ahead and I'll add a little bit of water and I'll just blend that out. And then I'll come in with my second lightest color, which is going to be a skin tone. And this is going to add just a little bit more of that orange to this layer. It's really not difficult to build color and to create interest on cards, especially on these floral die cuts. You just want to stay with the rule that you want your darkest colors in the back and you want to gradually gradiate lighter as you move forward. So this is my second lightest color and then, or my second darkest color, I apologize. And then I added a little bit of that pink because I'm looking at the die cut that we just colored and I'm thinking that it needs to be a little bit darker, so I'm gonna add a little bit more of that orange around the edges, and then I'll go back to this one and finish this up. So I'm gonna show you quickly how these edge pieces go together. The reason that I put these little edge pieces on first is because I am one who tends to lose pieces on my desk. I'm famous for setting something down and then not being able to find it. And so I really like to assemble anything that has a small piece as quickly as possible just for that reason. So I'm just going to add a little bit of color to these layers. And then I'll use my precision glue gun. I really like the precision glue gun. It's really helpful when assembling these florals because you can add just a small amount of glue, it really helps me to control the glue a little bit better. So here we go. I'm going to start adding these. These two pieces are going to go on the largest piece. And there is a key that comes with the peony die set, and that key actually shows the layering. For these layers, I'm gluing directly to the flower, and I'll do that with all of the accent pieces. For all of the accent pieces, I do try to keep them a little bit darker than the layer that they're going on because I want them to stand out just a little bit more. And then I'm going to show you that one of the nice things about this die set is that there is that triangle that you will see on most of the pieces. So there is a triangle on this layer. There is a triangle on the layer that you can see underneath it or behind it. And then that large flower has a triangle as well. And that triangle is actually what you're going to use to align the flower and make sure that you have everything in the right place. So this is really helpful because it takes the guesswork out of assembling this. So there I'm showing you that triangle and how it will go on top of this layer. And then I'll align the triangle on this layer. And I'm not gluing anything together because I do like to add dimension to this, but I just wanted to show you quickly how that is going to assemble. So this final layer is the last layer, this one that I'm coloring for the triangle, and I am going to use my lightest colors. So this is the second lightest skin tone, and then I'll bring in a little bit more of the skin tone one. Again, going from dark in the back to light towards the front, just repeating the same process. And then I'll color up my final two pieces using the lighter colors. Now, you can see that little V piece there. That piece is actually going to be used to cover up the triangle. It is the center of the peony. And so you'll see me go back in and add a little bit of darker color when I put this on top behind it so that I have a little bit more contrast. So here this is going to be light, but when I lay it on top, I want the area behind it to be a little bit darker, and you'll be able to see that. This peony die has sold out since I posted my video. I do know that you can register and put your name on the wish list, or put it on your wish list, I should say. And when you do that, you will be notified when they come back in stock. So I know that they are planning on doing a restock because of supply chain issues and dyes coming from overseas. It is going to be a little bit of time. I would say it maybe about 3 weeks to a month. So I would just put my name on, or put my the peony on a wish list, and then hopefully you'll get notified when they arrive. Here is a look at the foam tape that I'm using. This foam tape is from scrapbook.com, and it is 1/8" foam tape. I like the dimension on this. I like the thickness, and I also like the fact that it's very thin. So this is going to allow me to get into some of the smaller areas. And all I'm doing is adding that foam tape to the back end. This is the first layer that is going to go on top of that largest layer. If you need to bend your foam tape, one of my tricks is to remove the release paper from the back, and that's going to give you more flexibility with the tape. I will link this tape in the description box below so that you can head over to scrapbook.com if you're interested, and I am going to link all of the supplies. I want to thank you for using those affiliate links. It really does help me to continue to create content for my channel. I did want to mention that I apologize that there hasn't been a video on my channel for a while, and that's for two reasons. The first one is that I went on vacation to go see my granddaughter. I had a new granddaughter that was born in November, and I hadn't had a chance to see her, so I went in January to see her, and I was also sick for 3 weeks. So I wasn't capable of doing very good voiceovers. I wasn't ready to craft because I wasn't feeling well. And so I am a little bit behind, and I do apologize to those of you that have stuck with me and have been maybe wondering where I have been. And that is the reason that I haven't created videos. And then I got behind on some of my design team projects. So I had to come back and create for those. So here on this layer, this next layer that I'm going to add, I'm going to have that bottom section the which has which is underneath those other layers, and I need to add 2 layers of foam tape to this because of the foam tape that I added to the other layers that you saw. So this will make sense in just a moment. I'm going to add just a couple other pieces, and then you'll see at the bottom right there, I needed on that long section, I need 2 pieces of foam tape, and that is so that this is going to lay a little bit more level. So I'll add that second layer, and then we'll adhere this one. And from here, our final 2 layers will not have any foam tape. So the last 2 layers of the peony, I choose not to add any foam tape. I'm going to glue each of those layers directly onto the peony. So this is going to cover that keyhole right there. And we'll just align that over top. You can see that area. I need to make it darker. And again, this is one of the nice things about coloring your own die cut pieces is that you can make adjustments as you're building your flower. And so this needs to be much darker. And once I get this on, I'm going to need to add a little bit more ink, and I can do that easily with these brush markers. Again, you can use any type of watercolors. You can use distress ink. You could use, if you have pans of watercolors or other pens like the Zigs, they would work perfectly for this too. So here I am not going to add any dimension, and it's not going to lay flat, but is those smaller pieces on the left and the right, those smaller areas are very flexible. So I'm able to just slightly bend them and get them to glue perfectly to those areas. And there is the finished peony. Here's a second one that I created. You can see the beautiful dimension on those. And now we're going to work on the rosebud. Now, I didn't do the coloring on screen. I figure you've already seen the coloring, and I didn't do the coloring for the leaves either, but I will do the assembly. I only add 1 layer of foam tape to the rosebud, and that is to the second layer that goes over the main layer. So I'll remove this release paper and I'll add this over top, and that will give me the dimension for my rosebud. And then, as you can see, there are 2 additional pieces that we're going to add, which is going to give it a little bit more detail. And we'll just glue those directly to this layer that has the foam tape on it. For the leaves, I used 2 different markers. If you happen to have these, I used the base layer was neon yellow green, and then I added a little bit of grass on top of that. And then for the top layer, I just went with the grass, and I made sure that I made it really dark so that I had a high contrast. This rosebud does have a stem, so we will add the stem directly to the bottom of that rosebud. It aligns real easy, no explanation needed there. And then we'll move on to our leaves. So the largest leaf, which is the widest one, has a solid or a single layer, and it just goes right on top. And then for the smaller curved leaves, there are 3 different pieces, and it's pretty self-explanatory which one goes in which area. And then that will complete the assembly. Now, I like to add a little bit of glitter, and I do have this Lawn Fawn glitter that I use. I can't remember the name. I think it's like, is it Sparkle or something like that? I can't remember. I'll link it in the description box below, but it's going to give a lot of shine to these flowers. You could use gold watercolor, you could use white, or if you wanted to add texture using the same colors that you used for your flowers, you certainly could just add that ink to the mat with a little bit of water and spatter that. I went with this sparkle. I'm going to try to show it to you right here. You're going to be able to see it just slightly when I turn it, and I really like that added texture to the flowers. Now I have this card panel that I cut using the Tim Holtz, um, it's a distress edge paper cutter, and this is old Prima marketing. I thought that it matched perfectly. I'm adding worn lipstick around the edges of this. This panel's been cut down to 4 by 5¼ inches, and then I'll add foam tape behind it to give it a little bit more dimension, and I'll add that to an A2 white top folding card base. Here I'm adding a little bit of the dried marigold, and I'm adding it a little bit on top of that worn lipstick and more towards the center, and then I'll go back with that worn lipstick where I felt like it muted some of that color, and I'll add a little bit to that. To finish this panel off, I'm going to add those same spatters on top. So I'll bring back in my splat box and my fan brush, and then I'll bring in that Lawn Fawn glitter, and I'll add a little bit of water to my brush, and then that will give me those fine sprinkles of glitter onto this panel. I'm going to assemble this off camera. I did already talk about how I added the foam tape to this panel, so you'll see a little bit of that dimension. I added the 2 peonies. I like to do odd numbers, but in this case, I went ahead and did even. I added a sentiment that says happy birthday and stamped it with the Distress Oxide worn lipstick, and then I used one of my sentiment dies to cut it out. And there I'm showing you all of the sparkle, all of the dimension. This is such an easy project, and it's so enjoyable to put these flowers together. They've made it so easy with that little triangle that they've added. Here's a look at my second card. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. If you like the video, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks so much for watching.